Okay, guys, so today I want to talk about this little book called The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich August von Hayek. Sorry, I'm saying it. Friedrich August von Hayek. Okay, so what is there to say about this guy, about this Hayek guy? All right, so number one, here's the book that he wrote. He's Austrian, which for those of you who don't know, is a place near New Zealand, and they have funny little accents. So this guy, unfortunately he's dead, or maybe fortunately, depending on your opinion, but he probably had a funny little accent. Let's just say that. Number two, he was an economist. What does this mean? He's a guy that thinks a lot about money. Was he right? I don't know. Let's find out. Huge, huge capitalism guy. That's kind of his whole shtick. You read enough of him, and you're like, does this guy ever talk about anything else? Anyway, here's some book context. So when he wrote it, right? So it was 1943, and there's a little something going on. You might have heard of it. Yeah. And yeah, also this, also this guy. All right, here's this little disclaimer before we begin. Obviously, this book was important, right? I mean, okay, maybe it's not super obvious, but it's written at a time when, this guy was doing some pretty bad stuff, and I think it probably did help, make a moral case for fighting against, this guy. Um, anyway, moving on. So something a lot of people are missing here when they talk about Mr. Hayek. They like to say that this guy and his guys were, number one, not real socialists. Let me just say this. Number two, it's because they were fascist. And let's just say this. Number A, fascists are, I mean, it means National Socialist, right? So how can you tell me they're not socialist? Number B, Hayek thinks socialism is bad anyways. So what does it matter what kind of, let's not split hairs here, okay? I mean, Hayek, all right. You might know this guy. This guy's George Orwell, 1948. Something about George Orwell that people should know is that wearing a Joe Biden mask is the same as that year that he wrote the book about, George Orwell. George Orwell says there are two kinds of socialists. One, people that like poor people. Two, people that hate disorder. Which one is Hayek? Neither. Okay, so in the book, one of Hayek's main points is he proposes this dichotomy, right? There's, number one, British liberalism, which he's a huge fan of. The book is basically a defense of this, and then he opposes this to German socialism, and this one he hates. This one he's writing the whole book about because he doesn't like, and he thinks you shouldn't like it either. The USSR. The USSR is a place with total market and social control. Needless to say, Hayek's not a big fan of this. Well, I mean, at the time the book was written, he was a big fan of this because the USSR was a strategic. It really doesn't matter, but he takes an issue in the Road to Serfdom with something called planning, and planning is a big quote because he really doesn't like it. Let's define planning. It's a system where the government decides stuff, and Hayek says, okay, there's really no way to determine a fair price when you're doing planning. So this is obviously utter bollocks. Complete utter bollocks. And utter bollocks. Let's move on to an example of a planned economy. Here's an example of a planned economy. Bread is $1. Apples cost 50 cents. You get paid $5 an hour. No. And the reason because of this is getting paid hourly is a little bit dehumanizing in the sense that it's basically renting you, like as if you are a piece of, equipment by the hour. Oh, it's going to cost me. let's just say this: you get paid $1,000 a month, and in this society, we vote on if the price of stuff should go up or go down. So, for instance, if we want bread to cost $2, we can vote on that, and now bread will cost $2. If we wanted TVs to cost 50 cents and apples to cost 1,000, we could, even if those TVs had, OLED or whatever the QLED. So Hayek argues that there's a moral case for liberal or other, we don't call it decentralized market structures. He says that, okay, first of all, let's start with this. This kind of market is the only non-arbitrary, this is an important word to him, non-arbitrary economic organization, because he believes that under this system, everything is sort of construed by humans that have agendas, whereas under this system, there's a natural way that things fall into place. For instance, there's a reason why garlic costs 58 cents today and it costs 48 cents last week. I mean, if you can tell me that reason, I would very much like to know. Here's a counterexample: Big Macs. Look at a Big Mac. How much could a Big Mac cost to make? 20 cents? 25 cents? They're charging what, like $4 these days? I don't know, I'm just saying. And okay, and then the price of Big Macs goes up. What's going on with that? I mean, come on, guys. Plastic cheese is getting more expensive year over year, really? Quarter over quarter. They got to raise the price of the triple-decker bread because why? All right, explain this to me. And you might say, okay, inflation. Okay, first of all, this is a made-up concept. The price of things doesn't increase because the price of things comes back to, first of all, how much labor it took to make it. This is called the labor theory of value. Someone famous said this, or created the idea, but I don't know who that is at this time. If you do know, please leave a comment. Also, I don't care what Deleuze says about this. The labor theory of value is the correct one. Anyways, so inflation is made up, right? Because how can things cost more now than they did before? I mean, it's like, it's money. And they use this to scare you. They want you to think that if we do anything good for society, the inflation will come up. But let me remind you, this is a made-up concept. Look at this balloon. This balloon has been inflated, and it's totally fine. Okay, how do I want to conclude this video about Hayek and his silly little book? Oh my goodness. All right. Number one, he probably would have been a cool guy in today's society. I mean, you can hang out with him, maybe discuss some contemporary politics, whatever. So, you can kind of see where he's coming from. You know what I mean? This guy, he's got some reasonable points. And I think maybe we should take his writing seriously. Big economic thinker, very influential. No, this is wrong. Don't do any of these. Hayek, this guy, I mean, this guy sucks, okay? This guy, he's a lot like, stay with me. This guy, Hayek, is a lot like, this guy, okay? British / Austrian, and he has some wacky, zany little ideas, Bear with me, please.